Well, do you want to change your life for the positive? Do you want the floodgates of blessing to open in your life? Do you want to know where to find God in our busy, overscheduled lives? To answer that question, first, I need to tell you a story. My life changed one day looking at a crowded bulletin board. It says Marilyn Lacey. Vespers at 5, one notice said, sign-ups for the Gospel of Luke lecture, a flyer said. Then there were the litany of prayer requests tacked to the board. Prayers for Aunt Tilly's hip, for a successful job interview for Sister Ramona's brother-in-law. And then lastly, half hidden behind all of the other flyers on the board, a yellow postcard, just its tip poked out, and it read, refugees arriving at San Francisco Airport, volunteers needed at the international terminal. And that's all it said. There was no time announced, no contact information given. As the administrator of the Sisters of Mercy Convent, there wasn't room in my schedule, Marilyn Wright, for such a request. There was hardly even room for it on our busy bulletin board. And yet, for some reason, that little yellow postcard, it pulled at me. It found a way into my heart. But I shouldn't. I have other responsibilities, I mumbled to myself, and I kept mumbling even as I grabbed my purse, even as I opened the door to the cab, which took me to the airport. Our job as volunteers was to escort refugees arriving from Southeast Asia to their connecting flights wherever they were at the airport, so they could make it to their final destination. But when I met Nia B., and his wife Singh, and their 5 children at the gate, something had gone wrong. For them, there was no connecting flight, no final destination. The connection stopped with me. The relief agency said that it could take days, maybe even weeks, to find them a new permanent home. And so they asked me, could you make room in the convent to welcome them? And so I held a bigger cab. Nia and his family were Hmong people from the remote part of Laos that had disintegrated into violence in reprisals for their perceived help of the U.S. during the Vietnam War. Nia's family fled the violence with no possessions, no suitcase, no plan for the future. Without a single word being spoken or understood. In the sanctuary of hospitality, somehow they and we at the convent were transformed. Transformed from a refugee family and host to friends. From strangers to beloved members of one another's extended family. The children were especially an unexpected blessing. They ran around unabashedly through the corridors of our still then too silent convent. As they played, as they never tired of hiding behind couches and corners, only to pop up Jack-in-the-Box style to surprise any unsuspecting passerby with a smile and a laugh so strong they had to hold their sides to keep from bursting before running off again to surprise someone else. On the last full day at the convent, Nia, in the darkness before dawn, walked, as was his custom, barefoot out into the countryside. On the knoll behind the convent, there stood a majestic, solitary pine tree, like him, a survivor. The tree had survived a devastating forest fire a number of years earlier, but it was the only one. The tree, at its tallest point, shone far above the valley, and therefore it played a giant natural host to the day's first rays of light. As the sun managed to come up over the lip of the earth, its rays were received by the tallest branches, and that light then was escorted down to the earth through the tree. On this morning, Nia had climbed high into that tree, high in its branches, that he too might catch the sun's rays and bring them to his family. He stayed in the tree at the top until dusk, and when he came back to the convent, he was hiding something under his shirt. The next morning, as we said our goodbyes, Nia approached me with his hands behind his back, and when he brought them forward, they revealed a gray mourning dove. It had come to him in the tree the day before, offering itself, he mimed to us, as I had come to him in the airport, offering myself. It was a farewell gift, a gift of peace, profoundly wordless. Then seeing his wife untie from her waist a dazzling bright hand-woven sash, weeping, she tied it around my waist as if to bind us together. It was her most prized possession, and it instantly became mine. Whenever I feel lost now or discouraged now, I tie it around my waist as she had done, and immediately I begin to feel bound to the presence of the love that I felt that day, and that always, always flows toward me. But sometimes I forget. And then they left, gone on for their journey. Now, the 24 sisters who lived in that convent with me, of course, they never had any children. But as we welcomed this family into our lives, they filled our lives, our hearts with an innocence, a silly, ready laughter that healed a hole in our hearts that we didn't even know was there until we welcomed the Nia's family into it. And now the convent is once again too quiet. It was only a week that they stayed with us, but the space within the open heart is such a holy, hallowed ground. That space within an open heart provides a sanctuary so powerful that strangers become friends, that strained relationships begin to heal, that wounded trust becomes hope, that new life becomes possible, and from which a fountain of blessing flows so full it drenches all of those near it. Opening oneself to another, opening the heart changes you. It changes you. And it changes others. Having felt the power of that open heart, Marilyn Lacey left the convent so that she could devote her life to welcoming and offering that open heart wide in hospitality to refugees from all over the world. She became the dove of peace that she was given as a gift. Someone who seeks out and provides a space for the lost and lonely that feels like home, and within which can be felt the loving presence of God. Marilyn went on from there, from her work as an administrator, to found the nonprofit Mercy, Mercy Without Borders. And in 2001 was given an award for being an unsung hero of compassion by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And it all started at the bulletin board. It all started when she made room in her heart, made room in her schedule, in her convent, in her life, to welcome a stranger as a friend, to be open to the movement and the leading of God's Spirit. Hospitality is not just offering a home or food. It's offering yourself, your heart. That is the profound reality of holy sacrifice. It is an offering oneself as a blessing for others. That blessing comes to us. That is how new life comes. And the unlikely becomes suddenly possible. Marilyn likes to tell this story that they shared at her convent. Once there was an eager initiate, and in her eagerness to find God, ran from one assignment to the next, always trying to do better. So the abbess asked, "Why do you finish your chores so quickly?" The initiate said, "I'm eager to find God, to know God, and so I chase God in every moment of the day with all of my heart." "And what makes you think," the abbess replied, "that God is running somewhere out in front of you to be discovered? Maybe God is chasing after you from behind. And in all your running and busyness, you're just running away." So do you want to change your life for the positive? Do you want to open the floodgates to blessing in your life? Do you want to know where to find God in our busy, overscheduled lives? God is found within an open heart. An open heart. The open heart is the portal to the divine. It is the source of the well of blessing. What Marilyn discovered in her life is true of ours. When there is room in the heart, room suddenly appears in our schedule. When we are open to being led in new directions by God's Spirit, God's guidance suddenly appears. Now, I counted this morning, I warn you, there are 8 bulletin boards around the church. And each one of them could change your life as it changed Maryland. So too, there are nearly 200 people in the pews, countless others outside these walls, and each one can change your life. Each one offers you blessing, but to receive that blessing, you must have an open heart. You must welcome those others who are a blessing into your life so completely that it feels like there's a hole when they're not there. You will need to let love lift you above whatever walls we have built around our hearts. Rumi, the great Sufi poet, wrote this: "I've been forgetful for 60 years, every minute, but not for a second has this flowing toward me ever stopped." The this, which Rumi speaks of, which flows towards us always in every second, is God's grace. It's God's blessing. And it flows to us through other people. Through other people. And remember, it flows from behind us as well as out in front of us. It comes as the unexpected, inconvenient knock at the door within our overcrowded schedules. But when it does, may we open the door by opening our hearts and being people of welcome that we may receive its blessing.